All right, Doom Vivemus Vivamus Epicureans. This is the Marvel Epic Collection Podcast One Shot Edition. I'm your host, Nick Smith, and I'm joined by my co hosts.
Stojr from Stojr Shelf. How's it going, Nick?
Doing
Curtis?
well, particularly because we do have a special guest with us, Kurtis Findlay. Hi, Kurtis.
Hello, everybody. It's really nice to be here, and we're talking about something special today. One of my favorite comics. It's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't think Curtis needs much of an introduction. If anyone is watching this, you're probably familiar with his work. I mean, Stojer and I, no doubt, have been influenced by your work, Curtis. We wanted to contribute to the community that you have built, and hence why we started doing this podcast. And I'm sure everyone's probably familiar with the project that this Epic Marvel Podcast Reading Club you're doing. But anything you want to share about this, why you're doing this, your interests, what have you?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I've been a comic enthusiast since I was just a small child, and since the Epic collections came out, I've been a champion of that particular format, because I just love what Marvel's trying to do is get their whole history out in these really nice, decent sized trade paperbacks. And then yeah, I started up a podcast about it, and I love that you're kind of keeping that going, because my podcast has been inactive for a couple of years now. Just my life has been too busy to. It's a lot of editing and that kind of stuff, right? So um, I I went nuts. I don't know how much you guys edit your stuff, but I went in there and I was like taking out ums, and we'd start and stop, and I'd move things around and make it, remove awkward pauses, and it's like this is too much work.
Oh, yeah.
People probably don't care, but it's like, oh man, I wanted it to sound good, um, but so I put that aside, but I'm still active in the community. You got a great Facebook page with thousands of people that love to talk about Epic collections. And yeah, my new recent thing, and I'm glad you guys are on board with this, is that I want to do a reading club. And I'm talking through we're going to do Chris Claremont's X-Men, which admittedly is ambitious because he did the book for 19 years. We're going to do one issue every day as they are laid out in the Epic collections.
Mm-hmm.
And if my calculations are correct, not all of the Epic collections are out yet, so we'll have to supplement it with some other trade paperbacks or single issues or whatever, Marvel Unlimited. But once we get through all of Claremont's run, it'll probably take us until July of next year. So that's what I'm
Now,
guessing.
you,
And then, so if you follow me on social media at Epic Marvel Podcast on any of those platforms, I'm posting a reading order, which books we're going to read every day. You can leave comments. And then on my own YouTube channel, the Epic Marvel Podcast YouTube channel, we'll be doing a weekly roundup every Tuesday. And I'm happy that you guys are going to be doing something. Now, how are you going to do it? Are you going to do small little mini episodes every day?
Yeah, that's kind of the idea here. Although Stojer and I, we're both family men. We struggle to find good times to record with one another. So we've actually been trying to plan in advance and record some episodes in advance, which we will then just release the day of. This one being an exception, since this is the first one. This is a special one.
Yeah,
yeah, I think
yeah,
we
great. That's good.
these episodes were the first couple we did were about 7 minutes long, so we'll probably try and keep them short and sweet. Release them out there. One of the questions I had for you, Curtis, is are you planning on doing the New Mutants side of his run, of Claremont's run?
Mm, that is a that's a good question. I think that no, not really. I mean, you could, if Claremont was so prolific. I mean, we could also do like the beginning of Wolverine and all that kind of stuff too, Excalibur, like. But I think we're going to keep it just streamlined enough to the Epic collections itself. So just sticking to the X-Men Epic collections. However, I will be suggesting some supplemental reading when the need arises. So for today's reading, for Giant Size X-Men #1, I'm also suggesting maybe you should pick up Classic X-Men #1 because there are 20 pages of continuation of the story that's kind of between the issues. So,
Yeah,
and that stuff is written by Claremont. So while Giant Size X-Men is not actually a Claremont issue, there is supplemental material that is written by him that relates.
yeah, I'd see
That's good to
someone.
know.
Yeah, somebody had posted on Discord. I think maybe it was the Facebook page. I don't remember talking about the classic stuff. I had no idea. I know I had some issues of classic X-Men when I was a kid, but they're at my father's house in many states away from where I am right now, so I haven't been able to look at any of that.
Well, it looks
Yeah, the
like at
neat thing
least
about
the
that
first.
title,
I was just going to say the first
sure.
44 issues are on Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah, so Marvel Unlimited, they have those issues, just the new material. So the way that the at least the first 20 or so issues of Classic X-Men worked is that it was a reprint title, and it reprinted X-Men starting at Giant Size and moving forward. But because they made it ad free, and the idea was they're going to replace all of the pages that had ads with actual new content.
Hmm.
So each issue has a backup story that's, 8 to 10 pages or something like that, that fits in between the issues. And then in those earliest issues, maybe the first 10 or 12 of them, I can't remember, they actually created new story pages that they would insert into the middle of the issues to like smooth over maybe some continuity issues or add other insights to the characters. And some of them are great, some of them are not so great, but it's all really interesting still.
All right, awesome. Well, shall we get into today's issue? All right, we'll start with just kind of a quick, as we do in our regular episodes, which we only have two right now, and of course we're planning on doing more. And the reading club kind of threw a wrench in our plans. Stojer and I were suddenly screaming like, "Oh, we got to get involved in this!" So. Anyway, the way we would usually start, just a quick overview of the volume as a whole. So, this volume, let's see, is volume 5 of X-Men Second Genesis. The volume contains Giant Size X-Men #1, which we're going to talk about, X-Men number 94 through 110, Iron Fist number 14 through 15, and Marvel Team Up number 53, 69, 70, and Annual #1. I'll admit, when I picked this up for the reading list, I was surprised to see so much Team Up in there.
Yeah, and it's really nice that they have those in there, and as well as the Iron Fist issues. The Iron Fist ones are important because it's not just a crossover, but that's the first time we see John Byrne doing X-Men. So we are including it in our reading order.
Gotcha. And I mean, Chris Claremont, Iron Fist was one of the first things he was actually doing, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was still new to the game, and the fact that he was given the opportunity to do X-Men, and he described it a carte blanche X-Men. Like it was like you don't have to follow the original characters or anything. You can just do what you want to do, and it's like that's just pretty incredible.
Yeah, and so weird for us to think of now, but of course, X-Men was a dead property at that time, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
this volume, this is a significant turning point for the X-Men, and a new group of mutants join the team, again revitalizing that dead franchise, and also bringing an international flavor to the book. We see the young writer Chris Claremont rocket into comic stardom with a 16-year run on the book, and establishing a new baseline for what X-Men comics really could be. And for many people, this is where X-Men comics really begin. And I think it's safe to say that this is one of the few instances where I think the one of the writers or one of the creators can claim to have a bigger influence on a 60s book that was started by Stan and Jack than actually Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had. Like, I think Daredevil and Frank Miller's maybe another example, but I can't think of anyone else where that's more of a case than with X-Men and Chris Claremont.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he took this concept and ramped it up, and just the fact that he was on it for so long meant that we have nearly 2 decades of Chris Claremont influence, whereas especially with Jack Kirby, he was off the book pretty quick. They didn't do very much in the very beginning. They kind of just laid the groundwork. We got that foundation, but here's where we really develop, even just the lore of X-Men is with Claremont.
Well, and reading through this, I mean, you see how much Hickman, even in the Krakoa era, took from here, right? So, you have Krakoa, right? The whole era named after something that, arrived in this issue. But you also, when you get into some of the later issues outside of Giant Size X-Men, there's, this Stephen Lang, sort of subplot where, the humans are developing sentinels and things of that nature. It feels like Orcus. Like I looked it up whether there was any sort of like straight line between the two, sort of invoking a lot of that stuff at the same time.
All right. I do want to share one thing before we get in. I had the good fortune to go to Heroes Con in Charlotte this past summer, and Chris Claremont was there. I must have stood in line for 2 hours to actually get him to sign this volume. Unfortunately, my camera's flipped, so it's going to look backwards. But 2 hours standing in line, get a nice little signature right there, right on the... Oops. Oh, there goes my camera being silly. Right there on the cover page. It was worth the wait, but he was incredibly nice, talking to a bunch of people. Asked as I got up there if I had any questions. At that point, I was like, I've been in line for 2 hours. I don't want to take time from anyone else waiting to go talk to him or see him. So, still fun nonetheless. All right, let's talk about this first issue, Giant Size X-Men #1, Second Genesis, written by Len Wein, illustrations by Dave Cockrum. Quick recap: Professor X is traveling the world, gathering up a new band of mutants. Some are new characters introduced in this issue, such as Nightcrawler, Storm, Colossus, and Thunderbird. Some we've seen before, such as Wolverine from The Incredible Hulk, and also former antagonists Banshee and Sunfire. Professor X has gathered this new crew because the X-Men have gone missing on the mysterious island of Krakoa, and only Cyclops managed to escape. So Cyclops takes the new X-Men to the island, and it turns out the island itself is a mutant who has been feeding off the mutant energies of the original team. Naturally, the new and the old teams come together. They defeat the island of Krakoa by denying it gravity and launching it into space, as ludicrous as that sounds. All right, so just a quick recap there. Stojers, Kurtis, what are your guys' thoughts? Stojr, we'll start with you.
All right. I think, obviously this is a groundbreaking issue that, really changed the tone. I have all the X-Men Epic collections, and when you're reading those earlier volumes, it's a distinct difference here. And, it's really hard to get through some of those things. I actually don't think the volume right before this is that bad, because it's more of a traveling circus of like team ups when they were doing the reprints. You get the Hulk and Wolverine first appearance in that book too. You can get some little things like the Steranko drawn books in the volume previous to that, things of that nature. But the early X-Men is just little bit hard to get through. I have some nostalgia for it with that Steve Rude miniseries that came out in the 90s and things like that, evoking to the early days. But this really, turns those concepts all on its head. This is not a team of people that are trying to learn their powers. They're not teenagers looking up to somebody. Cyclops comes into this issue as a military leader. He's firmly in charge once he gets past the initial angst of losing his prior team. Almost every one of the X-Men that come into this issue know how to use their powers. So you have to sort of later on start to develop their own individual kryptonites and figure out where they're going to be not as useful. But Storm's an expert, Nightcrawler's jumping around, Colossus knows how to save people, Wolverine's cocky, and Wolverine's another one. He's not overpowering, right? You would expect with how popular he got that he's got the whole show here, but it's not the case. He's just another member of the team, another player here. And in fact, the people that we've seen before get much less screen time. So Banshee gets just a couple panels up first until he's in the mix with everybody else. Sunfire just a couple panels, and kind of go, just roll with the punches from there. I think this issue is great. I think it bridges the earlier storytelling of the 60s with this sort of giant monster that they have to fight, and starts to lay the groundwork for where this is all going to go. It's obviously not there yet. We talked about how this is technically not penned by Claremont, but Phil Owens in the chat pointed out that I think it's on Wikipedia or some other places that Claremont actually had some uncredited plot points in here. I think it was specifically Krakoa getting thrown into space. Not sure that they ever explained fully, or it was maybe in the backups of some of the Dawn of X stuff about how he gets back in the Dawn of X era. But then again, the more time reset kind of, is your get out of jail free card for any of those plot points. So, I mean, I love this issue. There's nothing, I can't think of anything bad to say about it. There's nothing nitpicky here. I'd read online there was maybe some, comments about how it's problematic that Professor X just sort of matrix in to everybody's head how to speak English and just yada yada's past that. But I mean, how are you going to get this team of international superheroes to communicate with each other as you go forward there? So those are my initial thoughts. Curtis, what about you?
Well, I love this issue, and every time I read it, it's exciting. What I love about this is that it starts off with mystery. Um, and even if you've never read an X-Men issue, it's a great jumping on point. But if you're well familiar with them, it's still like Professor X is a mysterious figure anyway. Even through those early issues, you never really know if he's got some sort of ulterior motive or like what he's really up to. And this one is here too. He's coming and he's recruiting all of these other mutants, and I love that we get a couple pages with each of them, and um, it's a textbook case of storytelling. It's like let's introduce all of these characters and properly display their powers and should give off their attitudes and even a little bit of backstory in each of them through exposition and stuff like that as we're gathering all of them. So as soon as we get into the mission, we don't have to worry about all of that. We're not talking about all of developing their powers or whatever. It's like it's all explained in those first like 7 pages or whatever it is. And I also love Dave Cockrum's art. He was an artist of incredible talent who passed away way too young. And we never got to see enough of his work. But his work on this book is incredible. And if you go back to those early X-Men issues, and the way that Jack Kirby was doing paneling, it's like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like he was a master at his craft, but it was very standard, rigid, like usually 6 panels per page, 2 panels per tier, or some splash pages and such. And once Steranko took over the book around issue 50, it really changed not just the look of X-Men, but the whole way that people were thinking about how to do comics. And so there are pages in this issue of Giant Size X-Men that have a lot of Steranko influence. And I think the one that I noticed the most is, let's see if I can find it here.
And here, Curtis, as you're doing that, I can try to pull up the pages on the screen here, which I know
Sure.
Curtis and Stojr, you guys can't see. Although I will say, when we had video problems in our first episode, it was because I had this comic screen on. So if we start freezing, that's why, and hopefully the audio will still be fine. But okay, Curtis, what page are we looking at?
Yeah, so we're looking at page 36 and 37 in the Epic collection. I don't know what pages of the comic they are, but it's the page where Storm is creating a storm, and Professor X is trying to hold Krakoa at bay with his mind, and Polaris is in major pain. So you can see that issue right here. The way that Cockrum has set up this page with the competing heads at the top with the overlay panels. Overlay panels were not something that people were usually doing at this point. So the fact that Dave Cockrum was doing here is a strength influence. And I love the way that these 2 pages work together, because you go through the top tiers, you read these, and then you get to here, and your eye to the next page here on page 37, and you have a tall vertical panel, and your eye is brought all the way up to Storm way up here, and then you get to read the rest of the page. So it's like this is brilliant paneling right here, all the way up. And I love that. And like that kind of stuff is great. And Dave Cockrum is helping usher in this new way of storytelling through the 70s.
Yeah, I had in my notes the exact. I mean, not in so many eloquent words, but the paneling of this, particularly that long one with Storm, right there, just brilliant. It breaks the page up. It makes it look different and unique. It lends itself to action. Yeah, brilliant stuff.
And you really
Yeah,
see his influences of like the original idea for Storm in some of these pages, and it's in some of these other issues where her face looks a lot longer. She looks a little bit more cat-like, because you'll see in the supplemental material how originally she was the sort of a black cat character. So that's interesting too, because that sort of doesn't it fades over the course of a couple issues as they sort of fall into where they want to be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's neat. A lot of these character designs, Dave Cockrum had developed for Legion of Superheroes when he was doing on that book, and they're kind of unused characters, and so he's bringing some of those designs back into here. Yeah, you can see on that cover of that DC Finest book there that is very reminiscent of Wolverine, one of Wolverine's costumes that Dave Cockrum gets to do, and then John Byrne kind of adapts a little bit later as well. So. Yeah.
Yeah. I loved the decision, too, to bring the X-Men back as an international team. I think it really opened up new possibilities for the franchise, new story ideas that you couldn't get with just a bunch of kids from New York, as all the other characters were. Although it is kind of a little cringy now to see because of the international nature and the new members, some outdated and prejudicial words were being used, particularly for Sunfire
True,
and
yes.
Thunderbird. But it was the mid-70s.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm not going to hold Chris Claremont against that. I think that was just kind of normal talk. And as we have evolved as a society and have removed some of that hurtful language from our vocabulary, I'm sure Chris Claremont has as well.
Oh, sure.
We all learn, we all grow. The
Yeah, and
international aspect of it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna agree with that, but also say that they all kind of give it to each other, right? Which was very much the thing back then, right? Like I don't know this person, but I know they're from this other place, right? And I'm gonna, just describe them how that is while they develop those relationships. So not necessarily defending it, but it's not it's nowhere in this is done in a negative way. It's just the way that people would banter back and forth back then.
Yeah. And stereotypes are also just a form of shorthand to tell you who the character is. And that's, for better or for worse, that's kind of how the writing is in a lot of circumstances, not just in X-Men, but everywhere. The international flavor of this book is something that I think is really important. Jim Shooter says that it was a sales and marketing tactic because they had a lot, X-Men and comics, they were doing really good business in other parts of the world. So they wanted to introduce a team of people that reflected those areas where they were selling some good comics. And so they brought in a bunch of people. And it's not the first time they've tried something like this as well. Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos is an international, not exactly an international team, but it's made up of very different cultural characters. You have a black character in there, and you have a Jew, and you have a guy that identifies as Yankee, and you have a guy that's very overtly homosexual, but they can't say that at the time. And it's like you're getting all of these different people groups into one team, and you get to play off those dynamics of each other. And I think that's really important to show the people getting along in this sort of context. Now, in this book, they're not getting along. There's a lot of arguing and a lot of fighting, but we know that they become a close-knit family. So we're like, oh, this is really interesting to see how this journey is going to go.
Yeah, and I'm sure in the mid
Curtis, when you're
70s. Sorry, Soja, real quick.
yeah, sorry. I think there's a slight lag, so when I go to jump in, I'm stepping on people. I apologize.
No, it's all good.
I wanted to ask you a question though. Like when you having reread this, which I'm sure you've reread it a bunch of times, but rereading it recently, what are your thoughts on some of the other books that revisit this era? So we've just recently had a Miss Marvel book where she's time hopping through different periods of the X-Men. I don't know if you've read that yet. And then there's also the more famous, which you probably read, Deadly Genesis, which sort of inserts some, canon in between or right before what happens
Yeah.
here. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually do like it when writers in the future will try and go back to the past and find those little details that they can expand upon. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know that Deadly Genesis was the right thing to do there. That wasn't my favorite story. I haven't read the Miss Marvel one, so I can't comment on that. But whatever happens in the future doesn't detract from the work that is here, because this work still exists in its own thing, independently. And so whatever the future writers have done, for better or for worse, I know I'm saying that phrase a lot, but whatever the future writers have done, this one, it still holds up as a good issue, and there's nothing that they can do that's going to ruin it. I know a lot of people say things like, oh, that book ruined my childhood, or they ruined Giant Size X-Men #1. But no, Giant Size X-Men #1 still exists, and it always will. And you can go back and revisit it in its original purest form anytime.
I do appreciate with some of these older books, and maybe this is me getting old and jaded, but I feel like there is more inventive use of their powers and locations. I feel like a lot of superhero fights these days are just kind of people punching one another, but like we kind of mentioned the use of disrupting Earth's magnetism to eject Krakoa out into space. It's crazy, but it kind of makes sense in the way they're describing it. Creating the ice boats and then having the Summers brothers propelling it with their force beams. That's just, it's weird, it's cool, it's inventive. And, Jack Kirby certainly did a lot of that. And I don't know if I see as much inventiveness these days as just kind of blasting others with force beams and what have you.
Yeah, and I think there's a reason for that. And I think that's because nothing was defined at this time.
Mm.
And so people were making it up as they were going along, and that was just the nature of the way superheroes worked. If Iron Man needed to get somewhere fast down a road, he had roller skates on his boots, and would jet propel himself that way. But over time, you find out from the readers which powers they like to see and which ones they don't care for, and then things are geared more toward that. So it's like, if people like want to see Cyclops just blasting things with his concussive force, and that's what we're going to see, and it's not going to be as much of the inventive stuff. So I think you're right.
All right. Gentlemen, any other quick thoughts?
I'm really looking forward to the other this read through here. As much as I love Cockrum's art on these initial issues, the John Byrne art, once that gets going, that for me is classic X-Men. And I did not start off as a John Byrne fan because I was exposed to John in the 90s, and I hate his art in the 90s. Like, it's just the Spider-Man and the later stuff. So for me, like, it's almost like two different people. And I respect him as an artist, don't get me wrong. But when I go back and look at, his initial issues in this book, I am floored. Like, to me, that is the X-Men era. And I'm really looking forward to talking about Uncanny 98, because when you talk about inserting things in the past, the work that Alex Ross did with inserting some panels from the Marvels into that book is just like, that's one of my favorite comics out of this whole collection. So I love this book. I think it's interesting that when we think about this book, it usually gets merged with the next few issues, right? You'll hear things online where people will say, well, Thunderbird dies in the first issue. He doesn't. He lasts a little bit longer than that. But I think that's just a nature of sort of skipping over some of these initial 60s elements and smishing all these stories together and fast forwarding until we can get to, the era of, the Phoenix and things like that. So this is a great ride to start off with, and I'm looking forward to it. What about you guys?
Yeah.
Well, I am really look. I have never done a read through from start to finish of this run before. I've read it all in piecemeal, like this story here, Phoenix Saga, and then I'll go Mutant Massacre and stuff, but never in order. So I've never seen every all of the events unfold as they were meant to. And I think the biggest challenge for me is going to be keeping myself from reading ahead. I am going to be strict in my one a day. I'm not going to like read a week and bank it or whatever like that. I want to do one a day and see if I can keep that up. And I'm glad that people are going to hold me accountable to that too. One of the reasons for making it a public thing and getting everybody involved as well is like, well, now I have to do it. So it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I am too. Again, Stoger and I scrambled when you announced it, and we had a discussion. Can we actually do this? Can we? Because we're already reading through epics, and we're both working guys. So can we add in an extra comic each day and do a recording? We thought, you know what, we're gonna try. So yeah, we are gonna release these once a day. Pre-recorded. We might miss a day here and then, but if we do, we'll catch up later once Stoger and I are able to get together. And of course, Kurtis, if you ever want to join us, you are always welcome.
Hey, maybe on some of those watershed moments,
Sure.
I'll come on back.
Okay, one last thing we like to do, we like to give little awards for really cool things or really weird, silly things. I've been calling them no prize awards because that's the Marvel tradition. Granted, no prize is meant for fixing continuity. This is just our way to award really cool or really weird things. So I do have a no prize award for this issue. And it's simply the issue itself. X-Men, or Giant Size X-Men #1, this wins Best New Direction in a Comic Series. I feel like there's almost no way you can deny that this is one of the greatest pivots in comic books. But I will give an honorable mention to the X-Jet's ability to fly Sky Nerd, which is on page 24. I don't know if that's printing error or lettering error or what have you, but there you go. All right.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. So let's see. Stoger, where can people find you on the internet?
TikTok on Stoger's Shelf, YouTube on Stoger's Shelf, and obviously this channel. And I'm active in the Facebook community that Kurtis and Omar have. So just enjoy doing this stuff and adding things and filling up the shelf behind me.
All right. And Kurtis, yourself, where can people find you?
Well, I'm all over social media under Epic Marvel Podcast. And so just look for that and you'll find me there. I like the aforementioned Facebook group as well. And I have a Tuesday stream at 3:30 Pacific every Tuesday where I unbox Epic collections and it'll be our weekly recap of this reading club as well.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. If you've enjoyed our thoughts, follow us on YouTube. We've also just got this going as an audio podcast that's on most podcast catchers right now. There's a few still waiting on Apple, but should be out there. And of course, we're going to have these little one-shots once a day, and then every other week, we will read, rate, and review a full Epic Collection trade paperback. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Stoger. Thank you, Kurtis. And we hope to see you all, well, I guess next time we do this. All right. Bye, all.
Thanks, everybody.